And if you're a good title company, you're going to know how to do a search. You're going to know how to provide all the clearance for getting rid of anything that's needing to be taken care of, and also issuing that title policy, which is very, very important to a new owner. Anybody can do that. That's a title company. But where we believe that we have our edge is the wonderful people that we have in every office. And Susan heads up the team in Inglewood. And so this just tells a little bit about her. And then there's a little bit about me. So we can move on to actually the topic for today is a settlement statement. Now, this one is a combined settlement statement. And there are some things that I'd like you to be encouraged to really take a second to look at when you get a title or when you get a settlement statement from the title company. And it may seem really obvious, but I cannot tell you how many times little things can be a problem. And if we can take care of them before you get to the closing table, it will make all the difference in how smooth everything goes. So let me show you a couple of things that should be obvious, but a lot of times realtors don't check. And making sure that things are accurate and that the spellings are correct on your buyer, on the seller, if you have the seller, and if there's an LLC, making sure that what you have and the information that you have is what we actually have on there. One of the other areas that seems so obvious, but has caused issues in the past. Let me tell you a little story. We had a closing. It was a mail away to the seller. It was cash. So this should be super easy, right? I mean, who doesn't love cash? I mean, that, you get one of those and it's like, once the inspection's done, this baby's closing. Yeah. All right, so we had sent the settlement statement out to both realtors, and both realtors approved the settlement statement. So we got the package ready and got it out to the seller who was at a distance. They were not coming to closing. They were in Indiana or someplace. So we get that done on time so that the documents are back for closing with the buyer. So we get to the closing. The buyers come in and they're all excited. And we sit down, it's the realtor, and I'm there, and this is gonna be quick. I mean, it's cash. How long does it take for a buyer to sign those few documents? So we get started, and I'm always going over this with them. And the very first thing that happens is they look at me and they go, "What do you mean that's the price? That's not the price. That's not the purchase price." And what had happened is there had been a price reduction. However, one of the two realtors that was supposed to be sending us, the title company, the addendum saying the price dropped from here to here, forgot that. We had no idea that the price had changed. Now, what happened is we did it on the contract price that we were initially given. So it went to both realtors approved the settlement statement. We got it to the seller signed it with that original price, never noticed, just signed their name, got it back, and we're sitting now in a closing room with this couple going, "We're not paying that for this property. The price was reduced like $10,000. Well, we never want to make the realtors look bad. And so I just excused myself. I said, let me just go back. Obviously, we missed an addendum, and we can take care of that quickly. And we'll simply get a hold of the seller and have him sign a revised settlement statement. And you'll still be out of here in a few minutes. So I'm going back and I'm looking through every email, everything, thinking, did I miss this? And no, in this case, it wasn't us, but I wasn't going to go back in and throw anybody under the bus. So I just simply said, okay, so this is the new price. I redid everything quickly, redid all the proration, everything that needed to be done, went back in a few minutes and had a nice closing with these people. And they all left and everything was fine. But it did take a few minutes to get the seller's signed settlement statement back because it had to be redone. And they had to be ready to sign it. And let me ask you this. If that had been 10-year deal, how panicked would you have been at that moment?
Yeah.
Yes, you would have been. And what if it had been a loan? It may not have closed that day. And yet it was one of those situations that was an innocent thing, but, oh, you need me to speak up more? Okay, all right. But, you know, it's so important when you get this to not just look at your commission and say, yep, my commission's there. And also, there are some companies that have a broker transaction fee. I don't know that you at Keller Williams do, but you know, usually people will get back to us. The realtor will come back and say, yep, you got our broker fee on there and the commission's great. I approve the HUD. And if the other things are not accurate, we can still have a big problem. So in that case, it worked out, but it could have been a huge, huge disaster. Does anybody have anything that has happened to you that was similar to that? Or Blake, what happened?
On one of my first deals, I had worked it out where the buyers were going to pay for title, but in the statement that came out, it said that we were going to pay for title.
You had to
And
sell it.
yes, I did. And I was looking through like, no, this is wrong. And if I would have just skipped it, we would end up paying for it. But I told the other agent, she's like, oh yeah, I saw that, but I didn't want to say anything. I'm like, well, that's kind of fishy. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it's really, really important to look things over. All right. So when you're looking at this, all right. So the things that we have yellow highlighted here are very important. Just a couple of things that are up here. There was a home warranty. Did we have it on the correct side? You know, in the contract, on this one, it said the seller was going to pay for that. But sometimes, you know, the buyer will pay. And, you know, you look at, is there a credit? You know, what credit for shutters? You know, debit, the credit's always important to look and make sure that if there's a debit over here to the seller, is it a credit to the buyer or do they have it reversed? All right, so those are some important things. Looking on down at the homeowners association, making sure that if you have the seller, did they pay that homeowner's fee for that month, if it's a monthly fee? And of course, it's up to the title company to have an estoppel that is going to show it was paid through. But I'll tell you another thing that happens is sometimes the seller doesn't pay because it's going to close maybe the second or third of the month. But then it gets delayed. And now it's the 20th of the month. Did they pay? Did they not pay? They're saying, oh, we sent that in. And the title company is saying, well, we have an estoppel dated on the 15th that it was not received. Well, I sent that in and I want that on there right, and all of these kinds of things. So those are important that if you're the realtor, just look at it. And if they've told you, yeah, I've sent that in, then it would be good to let the title company know. Even though we've got an estoppel, maybe they sent it in that day. I mean, you just don't know what people will do. So is it on there? Is it prorated correctly? And when you look at some of this, we can go through every one, but we put down some key things here. If it's a cash deal or if there's a lender. And of course, if there's a lender, all those fees are going to be on the buyer's side, either as a debit or sometimes a credit if they have paid something in advance and the lender is giving them something back. Okay. The settlement or closing fee, you know, the contract will say who is going to be paying that and who is going to pay for the title search, the buyer or the seller, the title insurance. Those are things. So let's we have, is the percentage split right? Is there a transaction fee? Looking these things over. The dock stamps on the sale of the property, that's on there, that 1305. And that's on the seller side, debit. Sometimes we look at these fees and why is there down here, looking at this? Why would this number be here? When in the year would you see this where it says 2020 real estate taxes withheld, trim plus 25% to Lee County tax collector? When would you possibly see that? That's at the bottom of page, it's not the bottom, it's on page 2 in your handout, where it says 27/27/54. Real estate taxes withheld from the seller based on the trim notice plus 25%. Do you know why that might be there? Anybody?
They haven't received their tax bill yet.
Okay, when would this be closing for that to happen? All right, now this, well, we're not actually seeing, we're seeing the print date here on this. Let's just assume this is a closing in on October 3rd.
And you pay taxes in arrears? Yes.
Yes. So that's,
Yeah.
okay, what happens is the prorations would be done based upon the, if this was closing in 2020, the prorations would be done based on the date of closing for October 3rd, 2020. But the final tax bill hasn't been posted yet. And so what happens is, as a title company, we're required anytime 60 days prior to November 1st, so it would be September 1st, we're required to start holding tax money. And so people say, well, my tax bill is going to be $2,600. That's what the trim notice said. Why are we withholding more? What do you think? And what will happen with the overage? Okay, this is why. When there's a trim notice, we usually are required to hold more. And in this example, they're showing 25%. That's a little hefty. Usually we don't hold that much. We usually hold about 10% over. And the reason is that those trim notices are an estimate. They're not the actual final number. And most years, whatever it says that it's going to be, it is. But I know about 3 years ago, as a title company, we were withholding the amount on the trim notice with no extra. And we got caught because they approved a little higher increase. And so now we had paid the taxes or held the money back to pay the taxes on November 1st when the new tax bill came out, but it was short. So then we ended up having to contact, the seller and say, or the buyer, who, depending on at that point who paid it, we had to contact and say, hey, we are $150 short to pay the tax, so that there's not a lien against your property, blah, 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 blah. And I can tell you, that is never a fun call to make. I thought that was all taken care of. Well, we did the best with the information we had. So what we do is we withhold more, and it's withheld from the seller. And then when November 1st comes, we pay the actual tax bill. And if, let's say, it came out to $2,650, all right, we would then pay that bill and refund that to the seller. And that's why we do it that way. So let's see, what are some other things that lien search? Do you see under miscellaneous, it says lien search, HOA dues, lien search to prop logic. And that's $105. How do we know who is going to pay that? It depends. You know, if you are paying the title insurance, or if they're splitting the title insurance, you know, those are things we need to know. And then generally, if you're marked, your person is marked as paying title, they are going to pay for the lien searches and the estoppel fees. And that can be specified differently in the contract, but when you're writing the contract, it would be important to know that. So let me see what else we have on here. Now, I've gone over some major things, but I'd like to ask you, what are the places where you get confused, where you get caught up, where you've had your client ask you a question and you didn't know how to answer it? What are your experiences? Tell us, what have you experienced?
I have not run into that issue.
Okay.
Generally, whoever I've been working with, when this comes out, we see it first,
Right.
and then it goes to the buyer and the seller.
Okay.
However, sometimes the buyer and the seller don't see it till closing. So there's no questions to us. The questions go
To the title company. Okay.
Very rarely have I had any
Okay.
from whoever the buyer or the seller.
Okay. Well, the buyer and the seller should be seeing it before closing. It, you know,
Yep.
and if it's a cash situation, definitely, because there's plenty of time. When you're working with a lender, sometimes that's really hard because the buyer is communicating with their lender, and sometimes the seller feels left out of it because they don't know until they get a package, and all of a sudden they're looking at it, and the title company person that has sent it out to them should be available and should express to them, when you get this, if you have questions, call us, we'll go through it with you just like you were here at a closing.
And it is usually with a mortgage where we don't see it until the very last minute. And yes, the title company should then answer the question.
Right, yeah. Where for us, we're just like cringing is when we know the lender's been working very, very, very hard to get the package to us, but sometimes they're so backed up that it's hard. And the thing that I, as a title person, hate the most is when everybody's sitting in the lobby and the buyer's there and they're real estate people, and we're still printing a package that just got to us. That's where mistakes can happen, because when I get a package in, as a title agent, I review that loan package and make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. And it's very hard to do that if you have the buyer, their kids, 2 dogs, and the realtors all sitting in the front lobby. And we don't have that right now with COVID. But I have had that. You know, they're sitting there, their U-Hauls right outside, they're anxious, and you know, the stuff's coming off the printer, and it's like, oh goodness. And we don't want to, you know, make mistakes, but we don't want to make them wait. And it's, you know, that's just the name of the game. And there's where I believe you just have to be calm, because if the realtor and the title people get all flustered, that's only going to make the situation much worse. So, and there's where when you have a really good working relationship with your title company people and you know them, you're going to have a better confidence level that it is going to work out. We will get it done. Everybody will close. It's going to be happy eventually. And that's, you know, that's just so important. So, okay. There, sometimes people will call us and say, why is there something on both sides? Have you ever had that? In other words, I'm looking at the settlement statement, the person said, and it looks like I'm being charged for these shutters that are on here. And the buyer is, you know, saying, is there anything on there about the shutters? And what they're not looking at is if there's a debit to one, it's a credit to the other. And that's also true on proration. But that's a question that comes up. So let me ask you, what questions do you have? And, you know, it's hard on Zoom because I don't know if the people can ask their questions and I can answer as well. And Blake has just stepped out, so I don't know. But Phyllis, Kim, David, what questions do you have? And no question is too small. I mean, it's definitely important because this makes all the difference in the world when you get to the closing table.
Mm-hmm.
What did you want to know that I have not covered?
Is there somewhere that you can look online to see what the charges are from like your title company? So that when because when we go to do our listing presentation and we want to put out there, this is what your estimated closing costs will be.
Yes,
Is there any place we can look to find that?
absolutely. And that is an awesome question. For those of you that are at Zoom and may not have heard, Kim asked, is there any place you can go to know upfront what their title costs are going to be and what the, what the expenses will be? Yes, we have a website and it's just Suncoast One Title. I encourage you to play with it. Suncoast One Title, just Google that. And actually, if you want to Google it on your phone right now, you can. Some are shaking their head, no. But when you get to it, the first time, you do have to put in your information. And then after that, you don't. Every time you go in, it's going to say, hi, David, or it's going to say, hi, Kim, hi, Phyllis. But the first time, you need to put in who you are and your email. Once you have done that, you're going to get into the website, and it is super easy and friendly. At the top, there is a button, and I wish I could do it live on here. Maybe when Blake comes back, we could do that. But if you click on the top part where it says calculator, have you found that?
Almost.
All right.
So you have to go into buyers or sellers first?
You can either say whichever one you've got. You identify whether you've got the buyer or you've got the seller. So if you got the seller, you would put in listing, and you're going to have your seller. That way you're going to have the cost. If the seller is going to pay title, I guess I need to move back up here. If the seller is going to pay title, there'll be a place, you'll put in the purchase price. They'll ask the question, seller paying title, buyer paying title, yes or no, and you click which one. And by the way, if you go in and you start to do this, it defaults to a seller screen. So if you have the buyer, you have to remember, I've got the buyer, so let me switch that to the buyer net sheet. So for the seller, you would put, it's a seller paying title, yes or no, and you put in the purchase price. And you go through each one of the things and just put in the information. If they have a loan to pay off, if you know your seller said, yeah, I owe about $150, and it's a $300,000 purchase price, you just put in, yes, they have a loan and it's $150. And then there'll be other little questions, but you just fill in what you know. There is a little plus down at the bottom right, and that takes you to the second page. And if you know the HOA is X, put it in. If you don't know it, leave it blank. But the point is, those things are there and it will calculate everything. And then when you're done, you can save it, because maybe what's going to happen is it's a listing appointment, as you said, and then later on you get an offer. And you're comparing, okay, this contract, we got two offers. This contract, the seller's going to pay title. This contract, I've got the seller, but the buyer's going to pay. But the purchase price was less. This one, the purchase price was more. What's the best deal for my client? You can do all of that right on there. You can create however many you need for that property. And you can email them out to your client directly from there. The good part about all of that is those fees that we put in there, we stand behind those. So if the title insurance says it's $1,600, it's $1,600. And if it comes out at the end and it's, $1,675, you have a right to say, well, wait a minute, this was at this price. Price didn't change. Now, if price changes, title insurance change. If they are a buyer and they have a loan, it's definitely going to be different, criteria. But when you have a listing, it's really nice to be able to do that net sheet, send it off to them via the email, save it. If you need to compare offers, you can just go right back in and, contract 1, contract 2, contract 3, and compare them. So that's a really good place. And just to let you know quickly, for a cash purchase, our settlement fee is $250. It is on our card. I'm gonna give these out. And those of you that are on Zoom, these are going to be at the office so that you can pick them up here. But this is our rate sheet. And it says closing fee $250, search fee $85. Here's an extra. And then this is the title insurance rate card that's really good to have in your portfolio when you do a listing presentation. And if somebody says, well, what's the approximate title insurance, and you don't want to be on your computer at that moment fussing around looking at things, say, well, yeah, I got a chart. Let's just take a quick look at it. And we're happy to have as many of those. I'll leave a stack of them here for you. Now, I want to mention that if you have the buyer and they are working with a lender, there is a settlement fee of $350, because when we are $350 to the buyer, because when we are working with a lender, the labor costs obviously are much greater for a title company than they are when it's a cash purchase. And so, if the seller is paying title, they're going to get the $250 charge. The buyer is going to get the $350 charge because they have a loan. And that's what we do. So if the buyer is paying both, we give $100 off. So that's kind of how it is, and just some basic information right on here. So, excellent question. What other questions? Do you have any questions? No? New agent. So you're going to have the questions when you get one of these for the first time, and you're nervous and you're excited and you want it to go perfect. That's when, if you get it and you go, oh, what did that lady say about this? I have no clue. You call a title agent, say, hey, I'm the realtor on such and such, and I got the settlement statement, but could you walk me through it? Because this is my first or second or third time, and I know that my client's going to ask me questions, and I want to know what I'm looking at. And please do that, because we are so happy to work with new agents and help you, say, okay, I don't get these prorations. It doesn't, I don't even understand how it goes. And even though you had to learn it for your exam, when you get in real world, it's totally different. That's it.
I don't have any questions.
You don't have any questions? Okay, nobody's had any questions. All right. Then I'm happy to, answer anything else you have, but I don't want to ramble on if you don't have any other questions.
Do you have a contact card that I can type into the chat so they can contact you?
Absolutely. It would be best if they call Susan
Okay.
at our Inglewood office, so that she can, she's there every day and can do that while I'm out and about. So Susan Garris at our Inglewood office is the contact. Okay, and I think, do you need the phone number for that?
Yes, give me 1 second.
All right.
Next phone number, please.
Okay, 941-270-4818. Okay, very good.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you. We have some chapsticks I'll leave here. We have pens.